The Hand in the Wall. A short story inspired by a true event by Misty Hamilton Smith. Copyright 2025. Helen was 6, the year the hand came through the wall. She remembers the way the wind sounded that night. Thin and high, like it was trying to whistle through the cracks in the boards. Their house sat up on a ridge in Bear Branch, 2 rooms stacked like shoeboxes, with a lean-to kitchen nailed on the back. No insulation, no running water, just wood, nails, and the kind of cold that made your bones feel older than you were. The front room was for sitting and eating, though they didn't do much of either. The back room was for sleeping, the entire family crammed into 2 beds. The walls were thin. You could hear everything: snoring, whispering, mice scratching behind the boards. And sometimes, things you couldn't explain. Helen sat cross-legged on the floor, picking at a loose thread in the quilt. Hazel, her older sister, was leaning against the wall, arms crossed, watching the fire flicker low in the stove. Eller, the youngest, had a corn cob in her hand and a wild look in her eye. She'd already knocked over the kindling bucket twice that evening. "Mama said not to play rough after dark," Helen whispered. Hazel rolled her eyes. "She says that every night." "She said it stirs up things," Helen added, voice barely above a breath. Hazel leaned in. "She just don't want us to bother Daddy." Eller grinned and pointed the corncob like a pistol. "Bang!" she shouted, aiming at Hazel. "Quit it," Hazel snapped, swatting her hand. Helen flinched. The wind outside picked up, rattling the tin roof. It sounded like something was walking across it. Slow, heavy steps. But she didn't say anything. Not yet. Their mama Orphe had a way of knowing things. She could tell when a storm was coming just by the way the chickens acted. She could feel when someone was lying, even if they didn't say a word. And she believed in things most folks didn't talk about. "Y'all hush now," she'd said earlier that evening, tying her apron behind her back. "You stir up things when you holler at night. Things that don't belong to this world." Ray had snorted from the corner, sharpening his blade on a whetstone. "Ain't no damn ghosts," he muttered. "Just varmints and fools." He didn't say it quiet. Ray never said anything quiet. His voice carried through the boards like a whip crack. The kids flinched when he spoke, even when he wasn't yelling. He had a way of making silence feel dangerous. Orphe didn't argue. She just looked at him, then looked at the kids. That was her way. Saying more with her eyes than her mouth, Ray stood up, wiped the blade on his pant leg, and headed out to the shed. "If I hear one more bang in this house," he said, "I'll tan every hide in it." The door slammed behind him. The fire had burned down to coals. The room was dim, lit only by the faint orange glow from the stove, and the moonlight slipping through the cracks in the boards. The wind had settled, but the silence felt heavier than the noise. Helen sat with her knees pulled to her chest, quilt wrapped tight around her shoulders. Hazel was beside her, staring at the wall like she was waiting for something. Eller had fallen asleep in the corner, thumb in her mouth. Corncob pistol dropped beside her. The hole in the wall was just a few feet away. It had always been there just above the floorboards, between the front room and the sleeping room. Ray had meant to properly patch it, but he never did. Instead, a loose board was propped up in front of it. Said it was just a damn draft. But Helen knew better. That hole felt like it watched them. She kept glancing at it, heart thudding in her chest. Hazel noticed. "You scared?" Hazel whispered. Helen nodded. Hazel leaned closer. "It's just a hole. Ain't nothing gonna come through it." Helen didn't answer. She was staring at the shadows. Then it happened. First the sound, a soft scrape, like something dragging across wood. Then a low creak, as if the boards were shifting. Helen's breath caught in her throat. Hazel sat up straight. "Did you hear that?" Helen nodded again, eyes wide. The hole darkened. Something was moving behind it. Then the fingers came through. Slow, curling, thick, covered in hair. Not like a man's hand. Not like anything Helen had ever seen. The knuckles were swollen, the nails long and yellowed. It reached through the hole, palm down, like it was feeling for something. Hazel gasped. Helen screamed. Eller woke with a start, eyes wide, mouth open. She didn't cry. She just stared. The hand didn't grab. It didn't claw. It just hovered there, inches from the floor, fingers twitching. Helen scrambled backward, knocking over the quilt. Hazel grabbed Eller and pulled her close. "What is it?" Eller whispered. "I don't know," Hazel said. "Don't move." The hand stayed there, unmoving. The room was silent except for the sound of Helen's breath, fast and shallow. Then, from the other room, Ray stirred. They heard the scraping of a chair moving across the floorboards. A low grunt. The hand twitched, then it pulled back. Slowly, like it wasn't in a hurry. It disappeared into the hole, leaving only darkness behind. Ray's voice cut through the wall. "What the hell's going on in there?" Hazel didn't answer. Helen couldn't speak. Orphe's voice followed, softer. "Ray, don't yell. They're just scared." Ray grumbled something, and the chair moved again. Silence returned. The hand was gone. But the fear stayed. Helen didn't sleep that night. Neither did Hazel. Eller curled up between them, clutching the quilt like it could protect her. The hole stayed open until morning, as none of them dared move toward it. Morning came slow. The fire had gone out some time before dawn, and the cold crept in like a thief. Helen hadn't slept. Neither had Hazel. And Eller had drifted off in fits, waking every so often to check the hole, then curling tighter against her sister. The hen was gone. But the fear was not. Ray stomped into the front room just after sunrise, boots heavy on the floorboards. He smelled like tobacco and sweat, and his face was already set in a scowl. "What the hell was all that racket last night?" he barked, slamming the door behind him. Hazel stood up, chin trembling. "There was a hand," she said. "It came through the wall." Ray snorted. "A hand? What kind of fool talk is that?" Helen stayed quiet. She was watching Orphe, who had come in behind him, eyes soft and tired. She didn't speak. Just looked at the hole. Ray walked over to it, crouched down, ran his fingers along the edges. "Ain't nothing here," he said. "No blood. No fur. No sign of anything but scared kids and a damn draft." Hazel opened her mouth to argue, but Orphe touched her shoulder. "Let it be," she said gently. Ray stood and grabbed the loose board from the floor, and nailed it over the hole without another word. Each hammer strike echoed through the house like a warning. "You kids need to quit making up stories," he said. "Ain't no monsters in these hills. Just bears and bad dreams." He lit a cigarette and went back outside. Orphe stayed behind. She knelt by the stove, fed it kindling, coaxed the fire back to life. Then she turned to Helen, brushed a strand of hair from her face. "You saw it, didn't you?" she asked, voice low. Helen nodded. Orphe didn't say it was real. She didn't say it wasn't. She just wrapped her arms around her daughter and held her close. "Some things don't leave tracks," she whispered. "But that don't mean they weren't here." Helen never forgot the hand. She grew up, moved off the mountain, raised children of her own. But that night stayed with her, quiet and sharp, like a splinter under the skin. She didn't talk about it often, only when the wind howled just right. Or when someone asked about Bear Branch and the old house, she'd say, "There was a hole in the wall, and something came through it." That was all. Most folks laughed, said she was dreaming. But she knew better. Hazel remembered too. Eller didn't like to talk about it, but when she did, her voice got small. Ray never believed them. He patched the hole, cursed the cold, and kept swinging his axe like nothing had happened. Orphe never said the word ghost. But she watched the woods different after that. She kept the lantern lit longer. She salted the windowsills. Helen learned to listen to silence, to trust her skin when it prickled, to believe in things that didn't leave tracks. Years later, when her own children asked why she kept a quilt over the vent in the floor, she said, "Sometimes things come through small places." She told them about the hand. Not to scare them, to warn them, because in the mountains, stories don't die. They settle, they root, they wait, and sometimes, they reach back. Thanks for listening to The Hand in the Wall, a short story by Misty Hamilton Smith. Remember, some things don't leave tracks, but they still come. Please subscribe and like.